So I think my talk would be kind of a footnote to what Liz was talking about, but also builds onto my other, I don't know if anyone here has seen my previous OER talks, but they kind of build, it's like those Partwork magazines that week by week with the Mail on Sunday, they build into a wonderful resource for you and your family. Back in 2011, I gave a talk about how I thought higher education should work with Wikipedia and not against it, and that might be a good idea strategically. And then I did one about Wikipedia education assignments, a good idea. Then one about Wikipedia isn't a site, it's an ecosystem of knowledge. And then last year I did the sister sites of Wikipedia are at least as important as Wikipedia's platforms for educational sharing. And other people have those ideas as well, and other people have actually implemented them, including people in this room. So in my present incarnation, my job title is the Wikimedian in residence at the University of Oxford, and this is the building I work in. And the Vice-Chancellor's office is in the bottom right, and I'm on the top floor on the left. So I deal with institutional politics and how to create institutional change in an old institution. And it's hard to do under the banner of educational innovation and introducing open educational resources. There's loads of inertia about how teaching is done, especially how students are assessed, and for quite good reasons. So coming and saying you've got to do education in a different way, how I say that's difficult. Ultimately, things are driven by the lead researchers. And things will happen if lead researchers want them to happen, and things will happen quickly if they need to happen for research outputs or for research funding bit. So I've got to work with that. Emma Smith is a professor at the University of Oxford and keynoted last year, gave a fantastic keynote, and said all researchers now have databases. We asked them what they're working on. Everybody's got a database. That's the environment I work in. So there's a possibility for change if there's an alchemy that turns the base metal of research data into the gold of open educational resources that are remixable and reusable. So it won't be a surprise, I think the key to this is Wiki Data. It's a sister project of Wikipedia. It's the newest of the family of projects. So it's a knowledge base of freely shareable secondary data. It's not something that you upload the raw data of a research project to. It's supposed to be the facts and knowledge gleaned from the project you summarize in a statement and you add it to these billions of other statements. It's a bibliographic database. It has information about publications and works they're published in and their authors. It's also biographic. People, their family trees, their connections to other things, to organisations. It's geographic. So I had a professor of geography look at Wiki Data and say it could be a master gazetteer, it could be a master index of all geographical features and human settlements in the world connecting all geographical knowledge. It's taxonomic, so there's species database, there's database of proteins and genes in it, all in the same database. It's a master authority file that relates all other authority files, and so on. So it's all, that's an important thing, all these data are in the same database. And Wikipedia has the notoriously restrictive notability criterion that there's got to be basically 3 substantial references for anything for you to write an article about it. Wikidata is more accepting, so if something is in a scholarly database, basically it can have an entry in Wikipedia. So here's a headline research output. This is the early modern letters online, the EMLO database. And so they've got thousands of important people from a 2-century period and very carefully checked basic biographical data about them, like their date of birth and place of birth and so on. It doesn't have pictures, and it doesn't have locations, but that stuff's in Wikidata. If we can marry up the identifiers of this database to Wikidata's, then we can create different. So this is using one of the visualization tools built into Wikidata. This is a map of birthplaces of people in that database. So you couldn't create this from EMLO, but you can create it from linking EMLO with Wikidata. And so it's interactive, so Cornwall. There's some artwork depicting him, and there's the link into EMLO. So this can be a front end to that database, that's an interactive way that brings people in. But we can do any kind of visualization, not limited to that. So the point of EMLO originally was about scholarly societies. So all of the early members of the Royal Society are in there. So we can generate a timeline. So I talk about Historypedia a lot. I think it's fantastic. It's just one of the visualization tools for Wiki Data, but it's really impressive. And there's different versions. So the basic Historypedia can generate a timeline from a category of articles in Wikipedia or from some set of Wikipedia articles that you nominate. But this is the version which is driven by a database query. So I've said, give me every person with an MLO ID and colour code them by the scholarly societies that they're in. And there's too many for the screen, but that's the point, we can narrow down. So if we're interested in connections between databases. So people who are in the Académie Française and also in the French Academy of Sciences. So we can zoom in on subsets and kind of fulfill the point of this database, which is to explore these relations, connections between different organisations, between scholarly societies and parliaments and so on. So that's kind of fulfilling what this project offered to do. Another example, the Voltaire Foundation is based in Oxford University. And they had a funded project to raise awareness of Voltaire as a historian. People know of him as someone who wrote about religion and about free speech and so on, as a novelist, maybe as a playwright. But he spent decades of his life writing these hugely ambitious histories of human civilization. So the Voltaire Foundation were, they bid to do work about that and to do scholarly work about it. And as everybody does, they put in the bid that will create innovative, interactive online resources to engage wide public. Everybody says that, and then they'll do it when they get to it. And then I went in and gave a presentation about Historypedia and Wiki Data. And, well, that's what we want to do. So with their own site, they can add on an interactive Historypedia timeline. There was some data in Wikidata already, but the academics took an interest in what was there in Wikidata. So correcting some of these publication dates which were wrong, adding titles, so adding images, so we need title page images. And again, we can filter this so you can just see the historical works or just look at non-fiction and so on. And then these are links to Wikipedia articles. So somebody not knowing much about Voltaire at all can go in and say, oh, I haven't heard of this work, and get a basic introduction, greater awareness of that aspect of what Voltaire did, which is what they're being funded for. So I want to stress that building this wasn't just building this timeline. It was improving the data about publication dates, sharing images, sharing knowledge. So we created data that we queried and visualized in a definite number of ways. Somebody might do a query of French language non-fiction works from the 18th century, and this same stuff will pop up. But the academics took an interest in what's available in Wikipedia and Wikidata as well as what's in their own site. So in general, the theory for any project, any scholarly site or research database, there's the meat, there's the original research that you want to keep control of and you want on your own site and you want people to visit. And actually Wikipedia and Wikidata aren't interested in anyway, they're not venues for original publication. But there's some surface level of stuff, the what it is, what it's called, where it is, that you can actually share, and you may as well hand that over to the environment where it can be freely remixed and reused by anyone for any purpose, and to see what people do with what they make with it. So you get incoming links. Share 1,000 records from your database, get 1,000 incoming links from Wikipedia and related site. And the same thing applies to cultural heritage, like museums. The interesting stuff that you want people to draw attention to is the physical stuff in the museum. All the catalogue data about it, well, there's no reason to keep that. You may as well give that away completely free and enable people to remix it to generate interest in the physical stuff. And Oxford University has a new GLAM strategy. It has 4 museums and a botanical garden. They've got a new strategy, and one of the arms of that is to make sure the collections of the museums, thank you, are used in research and education. And so I can go along to these meetings and say, well, the activities I'm talking about can deliver that. I hope there's overlaps in multiple projects. So there's research data being shared. If I get a catalogue from an art museum, some of that art will depict these people, these scientists and politicians from the 18th and 19th century, and so we'll be able to use those images in timelines and maps and so on. A project I'd do like to do, well, a project I'm going to bid for money to do, is that there's bibliographic data in some of these, in library catalogues, there's biographical data in databases like MLO, there's a poetry database in the Bodleian, so we've got data about works and the books that those works are published in, and there's external stuff. We could bring that together. We can share images of title pages and have bibliographic data and then data about the authors, and use Wiki Data to structure it. So we can have a digital humanities project without a platform. We won't have a site. We'll just be using Wiki Data as a hub to link data that already exists and to make it accessible inside Oxford projects or elsewhere. And a final example, so launching soon is this Atlas of Hill Forts. So this is, again, a blue chip research project with lots of archaeologists and collaborators to make this definitive catalogue of hill fort sites in the British Isles. Richard and Ron has set up this brokered this partnership. They've got about 30 fields, 30 bits of information from their field work at these archaeological sites. So they don't have to share that, that can be on the site, but the first 5 records in the database, the first 5 fields, so what something is called, where it is, what that identifier it is, they can share that, and then we can build maps of different types or coordinate these sites with other kinds of geographical data and build custom maps of that. But their atlas doesn't have pictures. It's a database of archaeological sites, it's not a database of digital media, and they have photos, the people who do this field work. How do they share that? Well, already on Wikimedia Commons, which is the media archive for Wikimedia, there's about 4,000 images. These are about half as many as there ideally should be. And it's Wikimedia, so there's no non-derivative or non-commercial. These are freely reusable by anyone for any purpose. So the archaeologists may as well just add to this. So what we're doing is distributing through the study group, through the scholarly group, one-side description of how you add images and get them to tag, get them to add a category tag to their uploads, and then we can track the users, so we've built up a resource of stuff that's being contributed anyway by volunteers or being extracted from existing databases of free photographs and contributed by these scholars. And the sum total can be used in maps, visualizations, also to illustrate Wikipedia articles. So that's my approach. When I do events and say, come along and learn about Wikidata and research, there isn't much enthusiasm because, well, I've got a database. Why would I want to learn about this other database? When I sneak into meetings, or I get one-to-one meetings with the lead researchers and tell them what we're doing, then I get great enthusiasm. So a surprising amount of time, researchers will be very enthusiastic and say, I want to do this, and I'll include you in a funding bid, or write a letter of recommendation for your own funding. So presently, I'm funded by innovation money, but it's becoming mainstream. I want everyone in university, whether they're working on cultural heritage, research, education, to think about that. What can I share? What can I give away to create interest in the stuff I control and I have? Everybody should be thinking about that. That could be mainstream. And I'm optimistic, not very optimistic about getting in the future. Thank you very much.
I'm Hilda from from the University of Amsterdam. I'm wondering about the way that people think about Wikipedia. Don't they think that if they put something there, it's less quality stuff that's up there, and that's Wikipedia is just for school kids that are looking at something on the internet, and it's not for us researchers to share our databases together?
A few years ago, I definitely encountered that attitude. At the moment, I go to to researchers and talk to them privately, and they use this all the time. They use it obviously in context to remind themselves of basic factual information about something. But yeah, school kids are using it, but everybody else. You see, doctors are using it to look up some, alongside other resources, to look up information relevant to their work. Lead researchers are using it. More and more there's an understanding of the process, that there is a quality scale within Wikipedia, that it is in progress, and it's only as good as its citations and its articles have lots and some don't. So there's some people who have like a cultural resistance to it and want nothing to do with it because it's outside academia, but the proportions have certainly changed over time. And yeah, when it feeds into your reach, like how much of the public you're reaching, which is part of your impact, which is part of the statement you make in the funding, the bid for funding to the research councils, then it does matter to their job. They do have to care about it. But also, it is important to get across to the researchers, so thanks for raising this, that we're not endorsing Wiki Data or Wikipedia. We're not endorsing a particular Wikipedia article. We're only saying we've contributed to. So if the whole thing is a mess or it has misconceptions in it, that's not University of Oxford's fault. That's so the no ownership principle that Wikipedia runs on is kind of important in protecting the contributors. I've deliberately curtailed my thing to leave lots of time for questions.
Well, I think there would be like 60 minutes for questions now in the hall. So thanks everyone, the four contributors and everyone who was here. And have a nice conference, and now I think there's lunch. Thank you.